Are we get? Oh, yes, we look great. Hey, everyone, welcome to a brand new SPS Chat 3.0. I hope you're all doing well out there. Sunday evening. What better way than to spend it with all of us? If you're watching this live, please let us know that you're here. Let me adjust my little mic here. And especially if you're on Twitter, our home base, we want to hear from you, but we are also on Facebook, the Lord's willing, and YouTube and Mixer. If Maria's nice enough, she will host us on her channel.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Awesome. So let me just make sure that we are good to go. Okay, so we should be, we're pinned, so we're good to go. If you're wondering what's going on right here, backwards, we got live captioning today, and trust me, this was a bitch to get going. So if you don't like it, let me know, okay? Because this is sure a hassle, and it's actually crashed my computer earlier. So if my computer dies while we're live, some of you, one of you out there owes me a computer. So if you have any comments out here, hey Zach, how you doing? Hey, thank you, Marie, for hosting us on your Mixer. I think we are good to go now. So without further ado, before we get into our topic, which is preventing suicide in youth, I was almost going to say within youth. That would be kind of weird. Let's go across the board. And first, and as everyone else, let's get to Marie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marie, also well known as, or medium known as Anxiety Online. I'm a mental health advocate and streamer on Mixer. So what I do is I talk about mental health related research and have people on also as guests, and I interview them and talk about mental health related topics and so much more. So if you'd like to catch that, that's Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thank you.
Awesome. And of course, we're not able to get the captions on other people. That's awesome. Hold on. Let's try to troubleshoot this real quick.
It doesn't normally work, if that helps, Rudy.
Okay, so figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go along, because accessibility is huge. Because if you see it, it's picking up everyone's words. It's just trying to figure out how to get just one person, so it's not like taking up the entire screen, if you know what I mean. So
if it helps, that's already impressive that it picks up everybody's words. I can't get mine to pick up everybody's words. So.
I had to steal software. Let's just say that. Danielle Glick, Dr. Glick, I'm sorry.
Dr. Glick, here we go.
Dr. Glick.
Speak up a little bit more, Danielle.
It's my stupid headphones. So I'm Danielle. I currently actually work with our guest tonight. I'm working towards my LPC and my license in alcohol and substance abuse counseling, and I will be applying for my doctorate in clinical psychology next year. I am both a survivor of suicide and suicide loss, and that's my story.
Awesome. You are going to have to pick up the volume, Danielle.
I'm doing I have the mic in my mouth.
Perfect. Hey, Katie, coming over from Facebook, facebook.com/SPSM Chat. Without further ado, why are we still on Danielle? Without further ado, here is our guest of the week. Tell the whole world, the whole SPSM Chat universe, who is Melissa Weidner.
Weidner.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Melissa Weidner. I'm currently a licensed Master of Social Work, and yes, I do work with Danielle Glick. I work as a child and family therapist right now, and we do a lot of work in home with very intense, severe, mental health and mental illness and substance abuse and children and families. We do a whole gamut of things. So I'm so happy to be here today to talk about prevention in suicide prevention in children and youth.
Now, I mean, you mentioned all the cool things that you do, all the important work you do. Why did Danielle specifically ask you on preventing suicide in youth?
Why don't we ask Danielle that? I don't know. I guess we have clicked at work. We're really good friends. I guess I have like a bubbly personality. We just get along really well. And I don't know. She told me she feels that I'm really intelligent. So here I am. Hope that I can say some intelligent things tonight. So yeah, I'm really happy that she did choose me. And yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are honored to have you on because
Thank you.
yes, no, we're going to talk about a very important issue,
Mhm.
and you don't need me to tell you that suicide in youth is going up. So it's
Mhm.
important to talk about, and what better place to talk about it than SPSM Chat. So before we start, let's give some shout outs to Rob Kramer, who is taking part for the first time in a while. I'm glad you're back. Is school-based peer-to-peer work awesome? So, hey, Jeanette, how are you? Hey, Noreen. Glad to see you, Noreen. I appreciate you. I know Noreen personally. Joelle Marie, one of our co-hosts who has the week off, or does she? Hi, I'm one of the panelists for SPSM Chat off tonight. I'm a peer specialist. I'm autistic and have OCD and advocate around awareness of suicide within these contexts. Other stuff too much. I don't know why I did the wave. Okay. Unforgiven Warrior, thank you. Suicide is Different, one of our most loyal followers. Hi, everyone. Suicide is Different here. We're an online resource for suicide caregivers. Our co-founders are both social workers working with youth in a medical psych setting. Excited to be here and learn more. Okay, so the way it works is SPSM Chat is we have 4 questions, although we tend to veer off into a myriad of other places as well. That's totally fine as long as we stick to 1 question per official questions per 10 minutes. So we have 10 minutes per question, and then we go into final thoughts at the 50-minute mark. If you're on Twitter, just reply. We put out a graphic. It's all auto-tweeted. So just reply to that and use A1 to question 1. You get it. And make sure to use hashtag SPSM, damn you. So without further ado, let's get to our first question. And what is that first question? Well, here it is below. What are noticeable differences in detecting suicidality in youth versus adults? And obviously, we must go to the guest of the week right now.
All right. So, in thinking about ways to answer this question, it's a really like hefty question. Sometimes it's really kind of hard to detect like the differences between youth and adults. Some of them, there's a lot of parallel, things that can go on, such as, like exhibiting hopelessness, social withdrawal, self-harming behaviors. There are a lot of things that kind of like coincide with each other. In the work that I have done with youth and suicidal youth in particular, I've noticed a lot of, just any change in behavior in general should be like a little bit of a sign that something might not be right. But a lot of the times these youth will act out behaviorally. That'll be like a big sign. Like maybe they will start using drugs, or they'll become more sneaky around their parents, or they will, start withdrawing from their peers, and like the behaviors will really increase. And I think a lot of the times the parents are like, well, my kid's just acting out. He's being a teenager, or he or she is being a teenager, but really they're struggling so much. And, this like change in behavior that can, shift towards more of a, violent or rebellious kind of behavior could really be signs that, they're suffering and really struggling mentally. So I think that's one of the biggest issues, I think, and differences between youth and adults. But besides that, like I said, the self-harming behaviors is a big one. Increase or even like beginning to dabble in substance use. They might be, trying to cope with some of their, mental health issues that are going on, their depression. So things like that. I think in short, like that's what I would say, the big differences between youth and adults.
What say you, Marie?
In terms of the youth that I've encountered through stream and just remembering myself, the biggest difference is they usually, from my experience, I found that they usually don't really necessarily understand that what they might be experiencing is a depressive symptom. I mean, I do remember very distinctly being like, hey, something is not right. I'm not reacting to things incorrectly, but I didn't have a way to, like, I really didn't have a way to name most of my feelings. So to go as far as to say like, hey, I'm experiencing depression, or I'm going through a depressive episode or something like that, that was not verbiage that I had. And it wasn't something just in general putting proper names to my feelings was not something that I was capable of doing. So I think that's the difference. And that is probably the hardest part in general. And that happens in the same way on my streams when people come in. It's very obvious when it's somebody younger, not just because, hey, they might start with like trolling or might make a silly joke to start with, but just from the aspect of like they'll ask a lot of questions and really try to deep dive into like definitions and understanding that. So that's the answer I'm going to go with.
Let's take it to Danielle.
Danielle's muted.
There we go.
Nope.
How's this? Is this better? No
Yeah.
headphones?
You got to speak up though.
Buy headphones. Can you guys hear me?
Just speak as loud as you can. If you think you're too loud, then you're just right.
That's fine. I was, a theater actress, so I know how to project my voice. I got this. So tell me at any point if
you need to be louder.
I can be louder. I'm going to be louder. Is this loud enough, guys? Okay. So I'm going to jump off of both what Marie and Melissa both said. And a lot of the things that I noticed are between youth and adults is very, very similar to what the both of you just said. But in addition, I also noticed physical changes. I noticed that some kids and even adults that I've worked with that have been suicidal, start binge eating or stop eating. There's, significant weight loss. I noticed that there's a lot of somatic complaints with people. I know a couple of people right off the top of my head where it's, I have a headache, I don't feel well. It's feelings and symptoms of anxiety that lead them to start isolating. And I feel like going to the verbiage here, an adult is in a position to easier put together the words to tell somebody, I feel like dying, or I'm having thoughts of suicide. Whereas when kids verbalize these thoughts and feelings, oftentimes, at least in my experiences, they're looked at as attention-seeking behaviors and they're kind of brushed aside. So I do also think that a very big thing to pay attention to is the fact of their environment and how the environment is perceiving what these noticeable signs are.
Did everyone get that?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Okay, great.
Yeah.
What is this question? What are noticeable differences impacting suicidality in youth versus adults? Well, I think we all made great points. I want to get to Nancy's comment about weight. Was that weight gain or weight loss?
Weight loss.
What about a lot of weight loss? This might seem like a kind of an out of left field question, but that's what we do at SPSM Chat, Melissa. Have you ever heard anything like about this? Kids feeling suicidal because of weight. Let's just say weight changes in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when children are exhibiting depression, a lot of, symptoms can go with that. And some of that could be loss of appetite, and so this depression may be contributing to a loss of appetite, and that could in turn cause a loss of weight. But also, there could be many different things going on as well, like co-occurring with the depression if an eating disorder has developed. So I think it would be important to just be aware of what your child is doing and eating, and if you see a change in their eating habits, so you can get a better understanding of what exactly is going on.
Yeah, and I've dealt, Melissa, well, everyone, I've dealt with weight issues my entire life, just massive weight gain, massive weight loss, you name it. And I've definitely, I don't feel like that's been a reason why I've wanted to kill myself in the past, but I think just that pressure we have from society, it just, personally, I mean, it literally drives me crazy. And I understand why people, especially in youth, too, who are just like got enough going on in their lives. And so, yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, me, like, I thought about suicide from a young age, and which leads me to, I think we have a couple of minutes before our next question. And I think this is very important for you to say, Melissa. What are some of the youngest ages that you've seen or heard of youth contemplating and attempting suicide?
I think I've worked with as little as like 9 years old. I think a lot of the time, like, these young children will say things like, I want to die, I want to kill myself. And, you know, like, sometimes, like, they hear other people saying this, they think it's a normal, like, thing to say, you know, but I think that it's important for everyone to be aware that if a child is saying that they want to kill themselves, or if they're feeling sad, or like they are telling you, like, I want to end it, like, you need to take it seriously, no matter like how young they are, you know, like, if they're saying they want to kill themselves, then something is going on there. Like, they are feeling like, you know, they don't want to live, you know. And I think that we always need to be taking things like that seriously. And yes, I have worked with kids as young as like 9 years old, making statements like that. It's really quite sad.
Have you, Danielle? We're good.
Oh, we can hear you.
Keep going.
Nope.
Okay. Let's get
no headphones.
Let's get to question number 2.
Headphones gone. So the youngest that I've worked with is
here we
6
go.
years old. Can you hear me? Because I'm screaming as loud as I can without disrupting my neighbors.
What mic are you using? Are you using the mic on your headphones?
Literally, I just took out the headphones. I'm doing what I do literally every single time, which is just my computer. So I don't really understand what's happening here.
We can hear you.
But
all right. So
if I talk closer to the computer and you guys see like inside of my eyes, does that help?
You have beautiful eyes, so this is an upgrade.
Thank you. I will talk as close to the computer as I can, but the youngest that I've dealt with in terms of suicidal, you know, talk and ideation, whatever, was 6 years old, which, as a 36-year-old woman with no children, that was like the hardest thing that I've ever encountered. But like Melissa said, you have to take it seriously every single time. And I think that when it comes to parents dealing with kids that young, sometimes it's, like I said before, it's acknowledged as just attention seeking. It's brushed aside. And I have seen children that young actually harm themselves. So I think, like Melissa said, you do need to take it seriously all the time. And that goes to adults as well. I am so tired of hearing people say that phrase to me, and I don't know if anyone else has ever heard it, but it's the boy who cried suicide or whatnot. But a lot of people honestly are coming to me very, very frequently saying, well, you know, all they do is threaten suicide. When do you know when they're actually serious? And in my opinion, they're serious every single time. If they're getting to the point where they have to say that they're suicidal, you need to take that seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so before we get on to question number 2, let's get see if we got any tweets. We can put it on this one because no one wants to see me read from my phone for like 2 minutes. Suicide is different says, regarding their environment, how their parents view suicide and mental health can also play a huge role in how the vocal child/adolescent might be around their thoughts. And Noreen says, having supervised a mobile crisis response team for youth, I have unfortunately seen this on a regular basis. The importance is to really help them distinguish about wanting their pain to end and never waking up again. And Noreen goes on to say, I let parents know that they are attention seeking or manipulating, those are in quotes, for a reason. Pay attention no matter what. And Michelle, one of our biggest new fans, says that was to question number 2. So let's get to question number 2 then. So question number 2, what can families do to better support suicidal youth? And before I go back to Melissa, let's just get to Michelle's tweet before I forget. Michelle says, learn about the signs and symptoms, check in with your child, even if they look okay or are doing well academically. As a #school social worker, I see a lot of internalizing youth struggling to seek support because of the pressures from family, and school. Hashtag SPSM. Thank you for doing it right. So let's get to Melissa, and we'll have you respond. What can families do to better support suicidal youth?
So I think we've kind of alluded to some of this recently in our past discussion, but honestly, the main thing, and I see this in families all the time, is just really expressing like concern and having open communication with your children. Like, it's really, really important to get a better understanding of where they are and really listen to your kids and like pay attention to what's going on with them day in and day out. Like, if you see something that you aren't sure of, like, talk to them, tell them that you care. Like, don't pass judgment on what they're doing. Like, maybe they're acting out because they're really struggling. And I think it is so important to have that communication and be able to say, you know, like, I see you're hurting, or I see like something is going on with you. Like, I want to be able to talk to you about it. And I think family is the biggest predictor too of like these children who do become suicidal, because I see a lot of the time that these children do not have a family member or a close person in their life that they can talk to about things that are bothering them. And then sometimes in the environment, it can be really invalidating when they don't feel comfortable talking about that. But we'll get to that point. But I think the main thing is like having a compassionate, you know, heart, being able to, you know, listen to your children, trust that they're going to make the right decision and talk to you. That's the biggest thing. And just being aware of like typical signs of suicidal behavior and depression, so that you can, if it does come up, be able to have those conversations, you know. That's the main thing, I think.
What say you, Marie?
I mean, the thing that was missing from me consistently growing up, and when I did feel suicidal, that came up a lot. And again, we touched upon this a little bit before, was just nobody believing me. And that definitely made it worse. So by the time I got to college and I had to be taken to the hospital, I literally said, I'm 18, please don't tell my parents. They won't care. And then they will also tell me that I was so desperate for attention that I went to the hospital. Can you believe that? So, and having not wanting to hear that, obviously, just after years and years of suppressing it, suppressing my thoughts and my awful emotions, in just pushing them further into myself, just because I didn't want to hear them. I didn't want to think that they might have been right. And that made me re-question time and time again whether or not was I attention seeking, but then why did I have these thoughts and why did I feel all these terrible things? And so what can families, the question is, can you pull it up again? Do better. You're right. Because question number 3 nicely ties into this one. That's why I wanted to double check. But yeah, what can they better do? Just honestly, it's been said by everybody before, but if your kid is telling you that they're suicidal and that's how they're coming to you to ask for attention, holy moly, that should be the biggest red flag, that like your kid should not be looking for attention from you this way. Something else is going on. But then again, if chances are, based on personal experience, something's probably going on at home. If kids are looking for some kind of outlet, trying to get attention some kind of which way, they're clearly not getting it where they need to be getting it at the source in their home. So it all kind of ties together.
Now, Marie, do you get people watching your streams who are parents asking you for advice?
I get, not a lot of people disclose they have anonymity on Mixer and on Twitch. And so not a lot of people necessarily disclose whether they're a parent. We've definitely had people come on and talk about the fact that they're parents and they're looking for help with their kids. And that is the thing that I've had to repeat over and over again, because I've heard the same thing that Danielle was mentioning before, which is, how do I know when they're serious? And I'm like, well, if they're saying something that serious, that's serious, period, right? If you're this alarmed over them just saying something like, I'm feeling this way, then that's a sign to be alarmed. That's a sign to do something about being alarmed, not come into a streamer and be like, what do you think? What do you think, 20-something person who's live streaming right now? Although that is my job. That's what I'm here for. But ultimately, yes, parents have come in And that is the question that I get the most.
Dude, parents ask me for advice all the time. I am the last person to give advice. I don't know I suck at everything, okay?
Okay, Rudy. First of all, you're pulling all of this together, so I don't want to hear any of that ish. But second of all, it is terrifying when parents come to you and you're like, I have my experience. It didn't really go well for me, so I can tell you what you shouldn't do because that's what my parents did. But I definitely am not in a place to tell you what, as a parent, you should do, other than the same thing that I would tell somebody who's coming into my stream who's suicidal, which is go talk to a professional.
Well, when you put it that way, okay. So Danielle, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Rudy. Can you guys hear me again? Still?
Yes.
It's still keep up the volume.
All right. Is it my turn to answer your question? Because I had
Yes.
a thought and then I forgot. So to me, one thing that I like to do when I go into the homes to deal with the families is psychoeducation. I feel like a lot of people don't understand what their children are going through. So I think it's really important for people to take a couple of minutes, literally even a couple of minutes. If your child already has a diagnosis, go on the internet and there's so many different sources, whether it's having a conversation in person, looking up a diagnosis on the internet. I think that the more that people understand what it is that their child is going through, the better equipped they are to have the conversations with them, which means that the next important thing to me is that families need to learn how to better communicate. You know your child, so you should know when something is actually wrong versus when it is pure attention-seeking behavior. And I think one of the worst things that a parent could do is minimize and invalidate their child's feelings and what they're expressing to them. When I was growing up, my first suicide attempt came when I was in 8th grade. And I did ask for help. I flat out asked to be taken to the psychiatric hospital. And you're fine, Danielle. You don't need help. Just go watch some TV. You'll calm down. And that was, about an hour before my suicide attempt. And I felt very unheard growing up. And so the one thing that I try to stress with the parents that I work with is actually listen to your children. Your children are telling you not only how they feel, but they're also telling you what they need. Another thing that I like to discuss with parents when I deal with them is that children mirror behaviors. So if mom, has X, Y, and Z as a mental health issue and she is suicidal or dad is suicidal, kids will see what their parents are doing and they mimic that behavior, not understanding, this is an unhealthy behavior versus a healthy behavior. And so these children are doing what they're doing to express the way that they're feeling, not necessarily knowing that this is not a healthy coping skill because that's what they're exposed to. So the environment is really important, and there's a lot of ways to make that environment healthy, in my opinion.
All right, so before we get to question number 3, are we already at question number 3? Good, we're rocking and rolling. I like that. Let's get to some of these tweets. Hey, Anne-Marie Matulis coming back, who is the predecessor, who hosted SPSM Chat 2.0. So hopefully you're okay with the changes, I guess. Kathy, how are you? Who is also a LMSW, says, to question number 2, don't be afraid of asking, are you thinking about killing yourself? You won't give them the idea, and watch your body language when you ask. Don't shake your head as you say it or use a tone of voice that suggests the right answer is no, of course not. Suicide is different. That says, in our experience, talking through how their thoughts can change is also key. Sometimes it's hard for youth to feel things will ever change. Of course, we can't guarantee change, but recognizing feelings as visitors that come and go is important. Noreen says, families can listen and support their kids. Don't assume they know you care. Tell them, oh, yes, I'm feeling that one. Michelle says, learn about to the supports in school and in the community. There's tons of orgs like AFSP, Suicide is Different, AAS, Suicidality, and so much more. If you need culturally sensitive info, check out Each Mind Matters. Okay. So Michelle also says, I am always happy to connect with others who are interested in learning more about culturally sensitive support and resources. I know Ursula Whiteside has been a great resource as well. I would second that. Okay, so I think Joelle had something to say. Here we go. Joelle says, I was young when I thought about dying, quote unquote, wanting to die 6 years old. That's kind of awful. But it also gives me some insight into how much depth kids have in terms of intensity of the stress they feel. I can support kids in a way others might not be able to. Question number 3. That would be, how do families contribute to suicidality? My answer would be they exist. But what does Melissa think?
Exist? Oh man.
Somebody had a great childhood.
So in short, as we've touched on before, I think a big thing is the environment, and I see this a lot in my, self-harming clients, the persistent invalidation in the home, and just, if a kid is crying, they're like, just get up, get over it. It doesn't matter. Like, you got to be stronger than that. Instead of like opening the doors and being like, it's okay to cry. Like, what are you crying about? Having these conversations, and that's really what invalidation is. If someone's showing emotion and you're saying, you can't feel that way, like, why are you doing that? And then that child is left with, well, what do I do with these emotions now? Like, I can't show them. And so that's when really, I'm talking about primarily self-harming, but that can eventually lead to, suicidal, ideation and suicide attempts. And so invalidation is a huge one. Obviously, we see a lot of this in our work right now, some abuse and neglect in general. There's a lot of families that, are not aware of what's going on in the home. Like, arguing between parents can even be, a sign of like some trauma for these kids. They don't know what to do with that. And so the environment that these kids live in is a huge predictor sometimes to, things that are contributing to their depression or suicide. It's just really what they have been growing up in, and not having a safe outlet to really express themselves or even feeling safe in their home in general. And I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I see a lot of the times that the family and the environment that these children are living in, like, can really contribute to their mental illness and really their mental health in general.
Marie?
For me, the big one is, and again, of course, I can only speak from personal experience, but for me, the big one was not belonging, not feeling like I actually had a home. Like, repeatedly, people around me would tell me, oh, we're family. But then that was really just an excuse to treat me terribly. And so how do families themselves contribute? It's definitely kind of echoing off of what Melissa said. It's the environment or lack thereof, lack of connection, lack of care, lack of wanting any insight into your child's life, disconnecting from your child completely. So all of that definitely contributed to my depression. There was also, there was a year in my life in 2000 where 10 of my relatives died, 9 of them from cancer. And absolutely nobody checked in to be like, hey, how's this small human handling this and like comprehending death and stuff? It was just all the adults were kind of running about and doing their business and handling it the best they could. And I do believe that there was like a point as a kid that I was like, oh, death is just like a thing. And I distinctly remember that being like a very memorable moment of starting to feel like, hey, haven't not been sad in a very long time, and really starting to like catch that emotion as a consistent one. So what do families do? It's more about what they don't do. And Rudy, I really want to hear a little bit of your story, if you don't mind.
No.
Okay.
I mean, like, I could go on and on and on. Maybe that'll be an episode for in the future.
Maybe an anxiety stream again.
Hey, there we go. That way I'll actually have something to talk about. So but all honesty, like, I'm trying to imagine like a little kid, a Marie, like with a big bow and glasses and her gaming chair. That should be like a chibi Marie. That should be like a little avatar that you have.
Somebody draw that, please.
Yes, get on that. What say you, Danielle? Not about Marie, but
just thinking about what they both said, and Marie, I'm sorry that you had to experience so many
Aw.
losses in a row. It hit my heart bone when you were talking. Yeah, my heart's a bone.
My heart bone.
But
You're a hard
it,
boner. Sorry.
it
How
hit me
cute.
hard. It hit me hard when you brought that up, because in 2014, that was a year for me. I lost 8 people consecutively, 2 of which were suicide, 1 of which was my boyfriend, and the rest were overdose. And these were people that I didn't know. And one of the things that contributed to my depression as an adult, was something that I felt growing up as well, was I felt invisible. And it did, in 2014 led to my last suicide attempt in 2015. So I think it's important, that families, even if they don't understand, to try and be as present as they possibly can be. And one other thing that kind of went through my head as you guys were talking is the cultural piece. I feel like one thing that can contribute, to suicidality in the family is a lot of different cultures, acknowledge mental health differently. Some, completely ignore it. And I feel like when you don't feel like you have a safe place, when you don't feel like you know how to vocalize it, because it's so, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, but it's like brushed to the side, because of your culture or religion. I know that I'm not going to even get into this whole tangent that I want to get in, but I know that one time I did have a conversation after Eric had passed away, about suicide in Judaism, and how you can't be buried in a cemetery with the rest of the Jewish people, and this, that, and the other thing. So I think that religiously and cultural, I can't speak, but I think you guys all get the gist of what I'm trying to say, is that there's a lot of factors to that degree also that I think should be brought up and acknowledged, because maybe someone on Twitter could verbalize what I'm trying to say better.
Now, before we get to the fourth and final question of the evening, and then we'll take it into final thoughts, let's go back to the Twitter chat. Suicide is different says, yes, even if they are not ready to talk right this moment, starting the conversation allows them to know you are a safe person they can turn to when they are ready to talk. See how I'm like looking to the camera and talking and then trying to read at the same time? Anne Marie says, love hearing you want to get more involved with AAS committees, divisions, woohoo. I think that's in response to MFK or Noel, whatever. Noreen. Michelle says, pressure to do well academically. This is in response to question number 3. Socially, and to keep up with all of the responsibilities in their lives. Not believing their child when they're withdrawing or saying they want to end their life, not getting their child the help they need. Danielle is retweeting Maya, who says, we need more voices like these amazing individuals. Ooh. One of the speakers is my BFF. Oh, is this? Oh, wait, no, I
She's
don't
one of
know.
my best friends.
And she has gotten through me a lot. Oh, Danielle. Dude, Danielle is my BFF. I think we might need to fight over her. Michelle says we also need to consider culture, identity, gender, and sexuality, and religion, because these intersectionalities and thinking about suicide and youth. The lack of resources is a big factor for families. Michelle, bringing the fire tonight. I award you all the points for tonight. You are SPSM Chat, November 24th MVP. You get nothing for that, but you are still an awesome human being. Suicide is different says culturally sensitive info, 100 emoji. That's a good thing. One scenario that comes to mind is in working with immigrant families. A lot of work to do in bridging communication between parents and children who can hold very different values. Hashtag SPSM. Bleacher Report says the Hoosiers didn't stand a chance on Nico Collins' breakaway touchdown. I disagree. Jeanette says, take expression of feelings, distress seriously. That is in response to question number 2, and that's totally fine if you want to go back or if you're joining us late. Go completely out of order. If you want to hack my email and get to question number 4, that's totally fine.
Don't hack his email.
So let's get to it. Question number 4. What are tools we can provide to you to help decrease suicidal ideation? Melissa.
So first and foremost, as Danielle stated before, psychoeducation is a huge factor. I think you read in the tweets that a lot of people have a lack of resources. sometimes people have a lack of understanding of what mental health and depression and suicide even is. So when you're working with people, you want to be mindful that they have no idea what you're talking about. And so psychoeducation is huge. Really just having a good, strong support system, someone you can trust, someone that will listen to you. I think a really important tool is, as we've said through this whole chat, listening, getting people the help they need when they need it, and taking it seriously. Coping skills, I know this is said around the board all the time, but like, what is coping skills? Like not having coping skills, maladaptive coping skills, such as like using substances, teaching these kids how to cope with their emotions. Like that's really square one. A lot of these kids feel out of control, don't know how to control their emotions. And then we come in, us social workers and everyone in the mental health field, and really teach these children like how to cope with their emotions, and families can do that as well. And so it's really important to educate yourself on what you can do to help your kids, and just all around be educated on how to help them.
Now, let me ask you, Melissa, do
Mhm.
any of these coping skills, tools, exercises that you've come across or used in your own practice, do you ever think about like, oh man, I wish I had that as a kid?
Every day. So I recently, I've worked in a million different settings, but I went through a DBT training, and everything I learned about DBT, I was like, wow, like I really wish that I had this growing up. And even now, like I use it so much, like it was just amazing. And yes, I absolutely wish I knew like what a coping skill was when I was growing up, because I just had no idea.
Marie, aka anxiety, what are tools we can provide to you to help decrease suicidal ideation?
A lot of the stuff, actually, what Melissa said about her personal experience goes here as well. Like, I remember going through CBT and being like, I wish I had known this. And a huge piece of that is going back to my first answer is being able to identify my emotions. And I do know that there are several states that have mandated mental health education in schools now. So I think that that's a great start. And mental health education being becoming aware of your feelings, being aware of other people's feelings, and how to help somebody who's going through a hard time, how to react adequately. One of the big things that I wish I had known didn't come across until I was 28, which is mental health first aid. So what that did is not only taught me how to handle other people's obviously mental health first aid scenarios, but also my own. So anything that applied to how to help somebody else obviously applied to how to help myself and how to handle situations myself, because a lot of it is how do you react in relation to somebody going through an emergency situation. And that was fantastic. And I know that, again, several states have mandated that teachers be have mental health first aid education. So I think like stuff like that is incredible. And then there's like streamers with YouTube videos that have, or their live streams that are educational and focus on topics where you can come and you can ask questions live. So those are good too, I think.
Like SPSM Chat.
Yeah, like SPSM Chat.
Just don't ask me questions. I'm glad you mentioned mental health education in schools. Melissa, what are your thoughts on that? Have you come across any of these? Like, does any of it rub you the wrong way? What say you?
Like mental health education in schools, you said?
Yes.
Actually, I'm working with a client now in a high school, and they have developed this group called the SHAPE group. And it's for a lot of kids that are dealing with depression, suicidal thoughts, kids that have gotten bullied in the past. And I think it was like a really amazing opportunity for kids to kind of get together. It's like a couple times a week that they go and sit and chat and like talk about anything that's bothering them with the social worker. And so I think that there has been a lot more awareness, especially around like bullying and, depression that follows from that. And so I think schools are becoming more and more aware of what's going on, and then putting things in place to kind of help with that.
What say you, Danielle?
Well, just jumping off of the education in schools, I'm not sure if you even knew this, Rudy, but I was working with NAMI doing the Ending the Silence program for about 2 years. Um, and I thought that it was a really, really unique experience, not only for myself, but for the students. We went like as young as 6th and 7th grade, all the way up to like 11th and 12th graders. And we went through this entire presentation where we were teaching them warning signs, telling them how to help and get help for themselves, help their friends. And then I was given an opportunity to share my own experiences with my, living with major depressive disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder growing up. And it allowed these students to ask someone with lived experience certain questions that they may not have otherwise been provided an opportunity to ask. And it was really, really beneficial to these students. I did have a lot of people come up to me after the fact telling me, thank you for doing this, because you just provided me with direction on how to go get myself help, or my sister's struggling. Going back to something else that Melissa said was, learning skills herself. For me, where she was doing the DBT, it's cognitive behavioral therapy for me. And I utilize that a lot as a clinician. I'm very big, especially with the suicidal clients that I have and people with depressive issues, trying to reframe negative thoughts, because I think it is very, very important. Because depression is a really lonely thing to have. You could have a million people around you and still feel like you're completely by yourself. So I think coping skills look different on everybody. And one thing that a parent could do in the home is, working with the clinician that's treating their child to learn what some of the coping skills their child is being taught, and trying to continue to implement those at home so that the work continues going. Because I know, when I was a kid, I stopped using a lot of the skills that I was taught. Another thing that I, as a clinician, would like to do is test things out on myself, because I do live with a mental health condition that I tend to every single day myself. And I'm not going to sit here and give a suicidal youth a tool that I don't think would be valuable to them if it hasn't worked for me myself. So that's my answer.
So before we get to final thoughts, which is always a crapshoot, let's have any last minute tweets. You are totally forgiven, Michelle, for not using the hashtag SPSM in one of your tweets this time. Katie Gordon, who is going to be our guest next, or 2 Sundays from now. We'll get to that later. I don't want to spoil too much, but
I'll be at the Aaron Carter concert.
Problem solving, support seeking, self-care, and emotion regulation. And that is a response to question number 4. Michelle goes on to question number 2, and that is totally fine as well. At Joyce Javier MD is doing great work addressing this with Filipinx families through the At Incredible Years program in LA. Check her out. Well, I live in LA, so we're going to be friends. Coming for you, Joyce. Dr. Javier, whatever comes first. Michelle says societal changes need to happen as well. We live in a culture where being a hashtag workaholic and being a hashtag perfectionist is desired. We need to model the behavior we want to see in youth as adults. Ooh, and that's a great line right there. Final thoughts. What do you have to say for yourself, Melissa Weidner, LMSW?
My final thought really is I'm really thankful I got to be on this forum. I think it is so important to kind of talk about these issues freely, because I just think there's still so much stigma around mental illness and suicidality and everything. And I really appreciate that there's forums such as this out there that like people can go and feel like they can relate, and they have people that they can talk to and understand them. And I think that there really needs to be more platforms like this that we can talk freely about it and really get rid of this stigma around mental illness, because everybody struggles in their own way, whether it's suicidality or depression or anxiety. And I just think it's so important that we talk about these issues so that when we meet someone that is struggling with something, we're more open and we can communicate with them. and really just like not judge people as much in this crazy, crazy world.
I disagree with you, Melissa. It should be the only platform where people talk about this. Okay, we are running things. Okay,
Well, there you go. There needs to be more.
Yeah, if you're thinking about starting a competitor to SPSM Chat, I guarantee you will go down in flames within 2 months.
I bet.
What say you, Marie?
That's the supportive environment I came for. No, seriously, but we would crush you. But all in terms of final thoughts, just take kids more seriously. That's really, I don't understand. I feel like maybe it was just, again, my environment growing up, and like obviously it was not great, guys. But I just feel like adults this was like actually a trope in 90s movies. Adults dismiss kids. Like kids would be bringing up issues to adults before bad things happen. And usually like Jurassic Park. Anyway, but so just being less dismissive to kids and creating forums in which that are age appropriate for kids to come to and be able to talk about this stuff. Because again, like SPSM Chat is amazing, and maybe like what I do on my stream is helpful too. But if a 13-year-old comes into my stream, I can't really talk to them. I'm not qualified to talk to them, and it's against every like law, so that I don't run into trouble. So having and that means that the age appropriate help would come from probably teachers, parental education, which is something that Danielle mentioned that I absolutely love, and other authority figures. Somebody in the tweets mentioned that like it's crucial to have our police officers and firefighters and first aid responders all better equipped to handle mental health emergencies or mental health issues. And I wholeheartedly agree with that, because as a child, being able to come to an authority figure and have them talk to you seriously about what's going on with you emotionally, as seriously as they would if you broke your arm or something, that would be great. That would remove a lot of the stigma we're experiencing right now.
Now, before we move on, how is the Mixer channel doing?
The Mixer channel, it's chugging along. It's had better days. People were more excited when we just started out, but it's chugging along.
Well, let's get at least one person to get on the anxiety train. So the URL for that is mixer.com/anxiety, correct?
Thank you very much, Rudy. Yes,
Cool.
that's
the least I can do for all that you've done, all the pretty graphics and all of your input, and I appreciate you, Marie, but I also appreciate Danielle Glick, Dr. Glick. What say you? Final thoughts. Let's hear it. Go.
There's so many final thoughts.
You get one.
I got two. I want to just echo something that I believe that I heard earlier, or maybe I read it on Twitter, but I think that it's important for people to not be afraid to ask the questions, because you don't place suicidal thoughts in the mind of somebody who's already suicidal. So I think that it's really important to keep the conversation going, and that we also need to stop stigmatizing ourselves. Growing up, I was personally afraid to talk about my mental health. I was afraid to talk about my suicidal ideation, my attempts, everything, which I think ultimately worked against me. So I hope that kids find the ability to recognize that it's okay to ask for help, as well as adults, because it's okay to not be okay, as cliche as that has become. In my opinion, I see it like so much. But I think a lot of people also get fixated on the labels, and that's something Melissa and I have had many conversations about. And it's important for everyone to remember that you are not defined by the fact that you are someone who attempted suicide, or someone who's bipolar or major depressive. These are things that you have, but they are not who you are. So just keep moving forward, and don't be afraid to ask for help or have a conversation.
And as for me, and I agree with you, Kevin Marks, no police involved. It's hard being a youth, okay? It's hard being a kid, all right? Like kids, I was going to say us, but like I'm 32, I'm an old man, I'm creepy.
No,
It's like kids have less civil rights than any other group known at all. Okay, so it's so I get it. It is hard being a kid, and it's I hear you, kids. God, I have no idea where I'm going with this. What I'm trying to say is, it sucks being a kid just for being a kid sometimes. Yes, it is some of the best times of your life, but man, are those hormones. Okay, let's get on to Melissa. I usually ask people. I usually ask people how to connect with you, but all your stuff is private, so don't contact Melissa. Okay. Thank you.
I guess.
Thank you, Melissa. I really appreciate you. You were like infinitely better than last week's guest.
Oh, thanks. I
So
appreciate
much.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Thanksgiving apparently next week, so we're not going to have a show next Sunday, December 1st. We have it off. I know I need a break. Do you? Anyone else feel like they need a break next
Oh
week?
God, so hard.
None of you were going to come on the show anyway, so.
Oh,
So
shots fired.
2 Sundays from now, and we can put the graphic up now. Our guest is Dr. Katie Gordon, who is one of my favorite people in the whole world. Hope she's still watching this. I know she's at a conference right now. Maybe she's back home. I saw her in the tweet chat. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be talking about eating disorders and probably about nerd stuff as well. So come join us. Why don't you? She's coming all the way from North Dakota, which is probably like -0 degrees there. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Marie. I appreciate you, Danielle. I know you're having a hard weekend, so I'm really appreciate you making it. I know it's giving you a hard time, but I have nothing but love for you, Danielle. So glad you're
happy,
still
Rudy.
sticking with us.
Aw.
And thank you, Melissa. Thank you for coming into the Lion's Den. I know we are quite the funky bunch, but you hang in there well. You hung in there well. So thank you. And thank you all. We will be back in 2 weeks from today, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time, twitter.com/SPSM Chat, facebook.com/SPSM Chat, youtube.com/SPSM Chat, mixer.com/SPSM Chat. Until 2 Sundays from now, hold your piggies close.
We love you.